My name is Alexander Glaves. I'm from Everett, Washington. My call was Salt Lake City South, and I served in July 2012 to July 2014.
My name is Seth Baum. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I was called to the Utah Salt Lake City South mission, and I served from June 2013 to July 2015.
My name is Carolyn Jensen. I'm from Seattle, Washington area. I served in the California Bakersfield mission from September 2013 to March 2015.
My name is Clark Jensen. I served in Tokyo, Japan from November 2013 to November 2015.
Welcome to Lock Your Heart podcast. This is the first of one of the features we are doing. So normally we would be going through and talking about our mission in a chronological order, but this time we're going to take a small aside to talk about our daily lives as missionaries. And of course we have two special guests, Melanie and Lincoln Gee.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for inviting us.
Absolutely. So just so you guys are introduced to the family, Melanie and Lincoln are friends of Clark, Carolyn, and I's. For me, from college, but Clark and Carolyn from high school. So what we wanted to do is talk about our daily routine, as well as the cultures of our missions at large. So to start, missionaries have a very strict routine. Back when I was there, it was very strict. 6 o'clock, 6:30, we would wake up. There was this weird thing at the beginning of my mission where we were supposed to wake up at 6 o'clock because we were supposed to be done exercising at 7, and we needed a full hour. And at some point, a 70 came in and was like, why handbook says 6:30? Y'all are being apostate.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. For the majority of my mission, it was like if you wake up earlier, you're more hardcore. And you would still do the same kind of morning routine. It's just if you woke up earlier, then you would just do more of it. And it wasn't until 70 came in and realized that the whole mission was, waking up at 5:30 that they're like, you guys, what are you doing? Wake up at 6:30, and all the green missionaries were like, thank you, you saved us.
And all the old school missionaries are like, you've ruined everything.
Yeah.
I was so righteous.
There's that funny level of exact obedience, but then extra exact obedience, right? Which
Yeah.
I always appreciated when the 70s came in and were like, stop that.
Right, yep.
We had a kind of different experience in my mission. My mission president was very much on the you should do good of your own free will and choice, and very not on the path of I will give you rules. You must follow the rules. He says you have the white handbook and you have the spirit, and I'm not going to get in the middle of that because y'all are in the middle of nowhere by yourself. I have to be able to trust you to do what you need to do. But he's like, you should still wake up at 6:30 though.
In my mission, this whole schedule was shifted forward half an hour. Just because the culture of Chile, everyone wakes up late and goes to bed late. And so we would wake up at 7 and then go to bed at, I think, 11. So
Ooh.
That's nice.
yeah. So when missionaries are like, I had to wake up at 6:30. I'm like, ha! And I woke up at 7.
You still only got 8 hours of sleep.
But it's the feeling of being able
Honestly, that half an hour still sounds so nice, though.
Yeah.
Also, the half an hour of going to sleep, too. I would have loved to go to sleep at 11.
Often what we would do is we'd get ready for bed so fast that we'd end up going to bed at 10:30 anyways. And get an extra half hour of sleep. It was great.
Well, here's the secret, though. We were never asked about this. No one ever talked about this, but it was kind of just commonly accepted that as long as you weren't in your bed, it was fine. And so there were definitely some days that I got up out of bed at 6:30 and then went over to the couch and fell asleep again for another 20 minutes.
I mean, Lincoln, there were times where I, just slept in until 7:30, but I'm not claiming that was, obedient or anything.
I lose the moral high ground when I do that.
Yeah, my main memory is just that it was hard every single time.
Yeah.
Like getting up at 6:30, there was never a single day where I was like, I'm ready to get up. It was a test of faith every single day.
Yeah, you never just got used to it.
See, I feel like I have a really big contrast here because my two mission presidents were so polar opposites when it came to the philosophy of exercise, where my first mission president was like, you wake up at 6:15 so you can be exercising for the full 30 minutes, right? But we would also do zone exercises. So every morning we would wake up and play basketball as a zone. It was great.
not
It was.
an option.
I looked forward to it every morning. And then we would change those games. We'd play speedball, which is this weird mix of soccer and ultimate frisbee and basketball. Gator ball, which is speedball but outside. And we would play like these Nerf gun fights where we'd wake up, go to our district building, which was a chapel. We'd play like zombies, protect the president. We'd do push-ups if we got shot to like revive ourselves.
Wow.
That
So,
sounds like
like-
so much fun.
It was a pleasure. And then
It was a blast. I loved it.
And then the second mission president was like, kind of like what Lincoln was saying, where it's like, you know, it's on you, it's a personal thing, and that's a lot more where I would sleep in until 7:30 because there just wasn't that group accountability, and it wasn't very fun. It was wake up and like jog, right?
How boring.
That being said, later on, though, that mission president, he issued a mission-wide fitness plan that you could choose to follow.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Included a diet that you could choose to follow. There's this one elder, he was overweight and he was not in very good shape. And then something just hit him one day, and I swear, by the time he was going home, he had lost like 70 pounds. And
Holy
he
cow.
was in shape. He looked really good. I could tell his self-confidence had gone up. Not in like a prideful way, but just like, yeah, I made a goal and I accomplished it. And
Which is-
That's cool.
President Chambers saw that. He was like, well, hold up now. Hold up. Let's figure out what you did here. So, yeah, he printed it out and put it in a folder and just distributed it through their zone meetings or whatever. But I
That
always
is-
thought that was kind of cool. I never did it, but it was kind of cool.
That
I
is
mean,
such President Chambers
way cool.
leadership.
I
Yeah.
know that. I remember my first area, it was way too cold to go outside and exercise. And we were way too far away from anyone else to be like, hey, let's get together and play basketball. So we would just do little at-home workouts in our living room area. So like jumping jacks and crunches and all that. And it was a weak excuse for exercising because honestly, what we really did during exercise time was try to heat our apartment either by like actually exercising or starting a fire in our stove or trying to get our heater to work.
That sounds so
it's,
miserable.
Yeah, it was bad. During the summer months, we'd go out and jog and stuff. It'd be a little bit warmer, but yeah, most of my mission exercising was kind of a joke because it was too cold.
I mean, I went out a couple times in the winter to go jogging. You put on like a bunch of thermal stuff because we make like a bet with ourselves, like, well, if we don't get this many whatevers, we have to go jogging 2 weeks in a row. And I didn't even make that bet. There was a different companionship, but I was on splits and I wanted to be supportive. And so we went jogging around our apartment, but there was this hill. We literally just called Slippery Hill. And we did 2 laps, and both times I burned out and hit my tailbone, and I was like, I'm not running until the ice is gone.
Yeah, no joke. I would not have been out there.
See, like, at least y'all tried to do exercise. I remember after all the zone workouts got canceled because me and Alex were together. I don't
Oh my
know if you want to tell this story.
No,
Alex,
tell it,
but
tell it, tell it.
We were having a weekly planning, and he just like, he looks at me, he's like, you know what? I'm going to start learning how to play the piano. And I was like, huh? And he's like, yeah, just instead of exercising in the morning, because I know I'm not going to do that, I'm going to like, I'm going to make it a goal, and this week I'm going to find a CD that I want to listen to, and then I'm going to find some way to get sheet music and start trying to teach myself the piano. And I was
Might
like,
as well learn something.
okay. But he actually did it. That was just the weirdest thing to me, is that Alex somehow found the way to do it. I can't even remember what happened. It just happened naturally. And so then that next week,
you're
there he
saying-
was in the church building. I can't even remember what songs you were trying to learn, but you did it, and I was like, what the
So I literally have in my show notes piano practice listed in there.
To do what your mission did, like have zone or district exercises, was just not feasible.
Well, the thing is, our whole zone lived within 5 miles of each other. Like, we literally, when I was doing piano practice, Seth and I lived next door to a chapel. Not our chapel. That was out of the area, but we lived next door to a chapel.
In case you guys haven't realized this yet, Lincoln and I both served in very cold and very spread out missions.
My zone wasn't within 500 miles of each
Both
other.
of us had to take planes to get to different areas in our mission.
Yeah, that's
That's crazy.
completely
That
foreign.
is not Utah
Yeah.
at all.
I got over 40,000 flight miles during my mission. I went on over 50 flights.
Whoa.
Dang.
That blows my mind.
That I can fall asleep before the plane takes off and wake up when it lands without waking up at any point in between.
Yeah. So like 2 episodes ago, Seth and I were talking about how we got dropped off, or Seth took a train. I got dropped off at my mission office on the way to the airport. The only interaction I had with planes was seeing planes fly over me in Kearns.
Right.
The next thing is personal companion study, and I don't know about you guys, but personal study was the crown jewel of my day, and comp study was the thing that you had to deal with because you enjoyed personal study.
Oh, that's so true.
Actually, for the most part, I was the other way around. There were a few exceptions where my companionship study wasn't the hottest, but for the most part, I felt like personal study was the one time during the day that I had just kind of to myself, and loved it, felt the spirit every day, and then I learned a ton from my companions for the large majority of all my companionships, and it was awesome.
Well, to understand my relationship to personal study, you gotta first understand that I'm narcoleptic, and I did not have any form of medication for that at the time. And so I love personal study, and I got maybe about 15 minutes of it every day. Some days were great, and I got a whole hour, and I was lucid, and you're like, oh, I'm in Jeremiah, I'm learning so many things. And then other days, you sit down, and you're like, oh, I know I shouldn't put my knees up, because if I do, I'm going to fall asleep. It's Alma. I'm just going to zonk.
See,
I love personal study when I got it. And companionship study was almost always awake. I mean, we didn't really prepare for lessons because we had maybe 3 or 4 a week. So what we did is we just kind of talked about what we learned and maybe read some of the cool things in the Ensign. Or it was always nice. I was really lucky, and I liked all of my companions. So it wasn't, oh no, and I got to listen to this person talk again. Thing.
So we called that being overcome by the spirit, Lincoln, or studying Lehi's dream.
Nice.
I had a lot of blessings from my Heavenly Father getting out on my mission and being on my mission. But maybe the one that is the most miraculous to me is on my mission, I never fell asleep in church or in general conference, which I cannot say has been the case before or since.
Right.
I testify that is true. Lincoln falls asleep in church all the time.
Yeah, for me, it's not that I didn't like listening to each other. It's just, it was difficult to get to that point of sharing. I don't know. The biggest memory I have is with one of my companions from the middle of my mission, Elder Jensen. He was actually one of my favorites. He was a really cool guy, but we would watch seminary videos during comp study.
Nice.
In general, we got really into watching church videos. Like, the phone call was one of our persistent favorites.
That's a good one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Seminary video. This has nothing to do with the gospel.
A seminary video, Lincoln.
Bassoon solo.
Yep. But not only those, also the ones that were from the Old Testament study guides that were really cheesy, but also really fun.
Like the Go Back in Time one.
Yeah, or like the one that's the Babylon News Network about the fall of...
Yeah! Did you ever watch The Armor of God?
Oh yeah, we watch everything. Legit, we watch
I had a companion
everything.
that watched the part of Armor of God where he gets shot in the back with an arrow on loop, and I would just hear from the other room where I'm making breakfast. And him just cackling. Yeah.
I miss those times.
Payment on your mission is just so much lower than any other time in your life.
Which, in my opinion, makes the entertainment that much better.
I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
never at any other point in my life would I just go on the church history website and think that that was the most entertaining thing I've read in weeks.
That's a good
I mean,
point.
Revelations in context is fascinating, and everybody should read it, but maybe not several articles at a time because you're just stuck at the church and you've got nothing going on.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how much shutting everything out makes you appreciate the small things so much more than even the things that you shut out. I don't know if that makes
Seriously.
sense. That
No, yeah.
How is morning work for you guys? I've heard that missionaries don't do morning work really anymore. They just study till lunch, which honestly,
Huh.
Not a bad idea, in my
Yeah, no.
opinion.
Well,
I mean,
I
like
agree
that.
with that.
English study. I don't know if y'all have that, but that was what we did until lunch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
had
didn't.
language study like in your training, but sometimes we'd still have like an hour or two of morning work. And honestly, I personally dreaded morning work because in Chile, everyone's either still asleep, has just left for work, or is cooking lunch for their family. And they're like, no, I don't have time to talk to you. I have to cook lunch. And so it's kind of just wandering around trying to figure out what to do to keep ourselves busy until lunch. I hate to admit that, but that's kind of how it was for us.
That's just how morning work is. Like,
Yeah.
straight up.
See, at the beginning of my mission, I felt that way. Like, I hated the morning hours because there's just nothing to do. But at the end, what I started doing with some of my companions is we would just get in our street clothes with our name tags and just go walk around our area looking to give service. I don't know if that's quote-unquote okay to do as a missionary, but we met a ton of people that way, and it felt like it was rewarding work. I understand that everyone can't do that in their area, but we met a fair amount of people that way because I felt like most people, if we ask to give service, they see us in our missionary clothes and they're like, no. But I mean, if you are coming up to them and you're in a t-shirt and shorts or whatever, then they're much more likely to talk to you.
That's
I
cool.
don't know. I ended
such a
up
good
liking to do that a lot more because I didn't feel like I was wasting my time or the Lord's time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I can't ever say that was like a gateway to a ridiculous amount of baptisms or whatever, but it did feel good to do. So that was what I ended up doing for like the last 6 months of my mission that I liked a whole lot.
My mission president told us that if we wanted to do morning work, like if we thought it would be helpful, then yeah, we should move around our studies and do things that we thought people would be more active in the morning.
No, yeah, I always considered the morning hours the best time to work with certain members. I didn't want to spend time working with members in the evening hours. And so, especially working with Relief Societies, Young Women's, and primary groups, just because that's when the women are home. And so it's always a great way to really ingrain yourself with the work and the ward. And that was a good time
Plus-
to do that.
Plus, the Relief Society president, primary president, Young Women's president will probably feed you lunch after.
Nice.
That's also where the work happened, right? So yeah, the Relief Society president was always the first place we would go to. Also, I wanted to make a small note on district meetings.
Ours were, I think, either Tuesday or Wednesday because our P days were on Monday.
Oh, you guys,
yeah, Tuesday
you guys
morning,
all have
sorry.
regular district meetings?
We had regular district meetings. A lot of times it would be like a half an hour just to travel, and so we just have them through Skype. Did you guys have?
I just realized, Clark, you weren't joking. I thought you were joking. Like, yeah, we
No, district meetings would just kind of happen sometimes, and they were a delightful surprise when they did happen.
Really?
But you weren't like, oh yeah, it's Tuesday morning, time for our weekly district meeting.
Really? I didn't know.
Yeah, so some districts you would have district meetings all the time because the district leader loved district meetings. Same thing with zones as well.
had... wow.
And then in some districts or zones, they would be really sparse, and you would just be a lonely, lonely missionary.
Oh,
But yeah, I
crazy.
loved them. I was like tons of spiritual upliftment. You got to see a lot of other English-speaking elders and sisters. Train rides were awesome, and usually you had to do a lot of train rides to get to and from wherever the district or zone
Yeah.
meeting was. And
It was like-
I loved train rides because it was like a good place to find investigators because they couldn't get away from
Go
you.
anywhere.
Or if you just wanted to take a break and get off your feet, that was a great time to do that too.
Right. The longest I had to travel for a district meeting was an hour and a half. And I swear, if you had tried to take away my ability to travel on that bus for an hour and a half so I could see another living human who wanted to talk to me, I would kill you.
Dang.
That was the last area of my mission, and it was terrible. But that's a different story. In the area I served the longest for 10 and a half months, I lived with the other set of elders. The only thing that district meeting really added is we got to also hang out with the sisters, which we also kind of did on Mondays and on activities because we were the only 6 American Mormons within a 2-hour flight.
Yeah.
Our American president didn't discourage us becoming friends with each other because he wanted us to stay sane.
Yeah, I feel
Wow.
like that's one area where that's just a little
That's
different.
Crazy. Yeah.
My mission, we were not supposed to interact or hang out with the elders on P Day.
Same.
Really?
I mean, we only had like 60 missionaries in our mission, and I'm really good friends with almost everybody.
We hang
Yeah.
out with a lot of Lincoln's mission friends.
One of the
so-
best friends that I hang out with is a sister from the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for the most part, sisters were kind of removed. They were like the elders' mission and the sisters' mission, and they would overlap on Sunday when you both went to church. and they would overlap very briefly just during the district or zone meeting time.
Yeah.
And for a brief while, they allowed for you to go to lunch together afterwards, but then that was stopped too, and then it seemed like there was just 2 separate missions.
That was not the mentality.
No, that
we
wasn't
had.
our mission at all.
It's like we definitely had rules to guard against improper behavior, but as far as trying to separate, that just kind of wasn't a thing. I don't know.
Like, we would do P days together, we'd do district meetings together, we would...
Yeah,
if they were in our zone
we did,
or area...
district meetings in church together, but we wouldn't get together and hang out on P-Day. If anything, we'd see each other at the cyber cafe to write home, or we'd see each other at the grocery store, but we wouldn't hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, in my mission, and this is kind of just a general trend, is that there was never really a clear rule, but everyone who had been in the mission more than like 6 months felt like they definitely knew what the rule was. And it was usually different.
But they were all very confident.
They very confident, to the extent where like people would get mad at you if you did something that you really thought was okay. Because in your last area it was okay, but then if you came to this new area, suddenly it's super apostate and everyone thinks you're apostate.
Yikes.
So one of those things is district lunch. After district meeting, we would go out and have lunch at like Arby's together,
Sure.
elders and sisters. One of my first areas we did that, and it was so much fun. And I got transferred out, and after my first district meeting, I was like, "Are we doing district lunch?" And everyone just turned and looked at me like I had grown horns. Like I was just gonna come in and turn this whole district apostate.
Hey, Carolyn, I had, after a district meeting once, where President Miller surprise popped in on us, which was, by the way, terrifying. Nobody even knew, like not even the district leader. So we're just sitting there, and all of a sudden, President Miller just bursts in there with his hamburger helper hands, and it's like, "Hey!" So anyway,
Nice.
so afterwards, he takes us to district lunch, and he's like, "What do you guys have around?" And we're like, "Well, we have X, Y, and Z." He's like, "I want to go to a Subway." He's like, "There's a Subway right there," and we're like, "President Miller, that's out of our mission." He's like, "It's across the street. It doesn't matter."
Let's break all the rules.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Beautifully stark contrast.
Wow. The idea of having to worry about which streets to cross is very foreign to me.
Well, so an area that Seth and I served in, Jordan River, every direction you looked was outside of the mission. North, south, east, and west.
It was just
Yeah.
like this little weird 3-block wide area. or
Connected
whatever.
by a freeway.
And it was just this little peninsula that was out there.
So,
Yeah, it was weird.
if you're ever wondering, by the way, Seth, why that happened, I have a strong theory of that was the highest baptizing area
So
in...
President Miller fought for it.
Seriously, it's right on the corner, right as we were splitting. I think that he specifically was like, "No, this is Salt Lake South."
that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
At all,
He's like, "Yeah, take all that, except for that little corner that baptizes all the time."
We're keeping Jordan River. Buena Vista, baby.
Nice.
I mean, really, if you could look at a mission map, it's like everything looks like a pretty natural boundary, and then it's just like, boop, just right there, just kind of sticking out randomly in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Nice.
So anyway, okay, so I want to talk about lunch a little, because I'm assuming everybody has very different experiences with lunch.
Yeah, lunch was typically done with all the elders in the apartment. Everyone had their own job. One person's job was to make the rice. One person's job was to wash the dishes or cut the vegetables or whatever, because we had the 1 hour meal time that we adhered to quite strictly. But since there was usually quite a few elders, everyone having their own job, we actually usually had a pretty high quality lunch and dinner every day, which was really nice.
So I served in South America, and lunch in South America is the biggest and most important meal of the day. It's even bigger than what we would say for dinner. It's so important. If people hear that you haven't had lunch, they think it's a travesty. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you poor things," and they'll automatically take you out to lunch or something like that. Anyways.
Nice. I would abuse that.
Yeah. So we had members feed us every day. I do not remember a single time where I had to make my own lunch. And yeah, we technically were only supposed to be there for an hour, but considering how long it would take for the member to actually like put the food on the table and eat, because lunch was such a social time in the culture that usually it would take an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, just so that you wouldn't offend anyone.
Right.
And so lunch usually was supposed to last us until 6 or 7 o'clock at night. So that was kind of our main meal of the day. At one point in my mission, we did have a mamita. She wasn't a member of the church, but she got a stipend every week to feed us every day, I think, except for Sundays.
Wow.
And so that was nice. She was a really good cook.
Is that her title? Mamita?
Mamita? Yeah.
That's cute.
We call her that, yeah.
Aww.
Funny, she was very Catholic, and so many sisters had tried to convert her so many times that by the time I got there, basically my companion was like, yeah, I mean, we can share scriptures with her, but at this point she's kind of an eternal investigator, so don't get your hopes up. It's been like years, and she was
So
just
she's like
so
on your
Catholic.
reports, right?
Oh yeah, so there were a million records of her in our area book. So many were like, oh, she committed to come to church, so we're gonna make her a little investigator sheet, and then she never came to church or whatever. So she was very sweet though. You know, lunch was such a huge deal. Always a lot of food, very oily. Always bread. Bread was a staple. The elders would lose weight from walking so much, but the sisters would gain weight, and mainly we'd gain weight in our faces from all the bread we ate. All of our faces got huge. Like our cheeks just got huge because of all the bread we were forced to eat.
I think I can count on two hands the number of times somebody made me a meal that wasn't at a restaurant.
Holy cow.
I cooked almost every meal, and I got really good at cooking.
For me, lunch was always something that we'd come home and grab a bite to eat. And I was a big believer on the mission in exact obedience. And exact obedience doesn't mean waking up at 6 o'clock. It doesn't mean waking up at 6:31. It means waking up at 6:30, right? And so lunch is supposed to last an hour, which means it's not supposed to last 30 minutes so you can work extra hard. And it's not supposed to last an hour and a half because that's wasting the Lord's time.
It's supposed to be an hour.
Yeah, so what that meant to me was that past the time you ate was kind of free time. In our schedules, there was an hour, right?
Fair
So
enough.
we, depending on who my companion is, like with Jensen, I would watch seminary videos. With Seth, we would play games, practice piano, listen to music, whatever. Obviously, I would never get fed lunch, right? That's where dinner comes for me. Literally, once or twice a week, Stouffer's lasagna, salad, brownies, and ice cream. That exact meal. The food got so repetitive. The chances of you not getting dinner appointments are very low. And so I got to that and was like, listen, Seth, we're going to cancel all of our meal appointments for this week. I can't. I cannot eat Stouffer's lasagna anymore.
I do remember that.
And low-key, eating-wise, it was my favorite 2 weeks.
That's so backwards.
No,
That being said, though, like, if you did cancel a meal appointment, there are some members who would get real salty about it. Because
Yeah.
you just, like, offended their whole generational line of ancestors.
you definitely, there was a way to do it, and you had to call in ahead. And to be honest, those members still fed us. We never made our food. They'd just be like, oh, let's drop it off then. We'd be like, neat.
What?
Right.
Yeah, we were
It's
spoiled
goodness.
when it
one
came
of the
to
perks of
food.
being a Utah missionary.
That sounds awesome.
See, it sounds awesome, Clark, but then you have to realize what it is you're getting. You're getting that same Stouffer's lasagna that you had 2 nights ago. You're just like, I
and you're
kid
just
you
getting...
not,
And
yeah,
brownies
like,
and ice cream.
it's not like, oh, this is like something really great. When I was in Kearns, I kid you not, this was so bizarre to me that I remember writing it down and I told everyone about it. I had 7 days in a row of pizza, followed by another 7 days in a row of lasagna. I cannot make that up. So I essentially had 14 days straight of the same exact food. You can't go to these people's houses and be like, can I have something else? You'd like offend them. Or, like,
Right,
that
right.
won't work
Well,
out, so
they
you just have
worked
to,
hard
like,
on the meal, you know?
it was just hard. And of course, these people, they're really excited to have you over, and that's nice and everything. But there's just a small spot in the back of your brain where you're like, dang it, come on, guys. Like,
And I do want to
is
emphasize,
there anything else?
I am
That sounds super
incredibly
ungrateful.
grateful to everybody who gave me Stouffer's lasagna and everybody who fed me in general. It's like a wealth of blessings to the point where it's too much. Like manna from heaven, right? The manna was delicious, but every day, like,
Kind of like, man.
The one exception is polyfood. Whenever I served in a poly ward, which was surprisingly often, we would often get a lot of barbecue food. And once I got more familiar with the members, I would tell them that I wanted real Polynesian food. And they would be like, are you sure? Because I guess they'd tried to serve missionaries that before and they were picky. And I was like, no, I want the stuff. And it was my favorite stuff I had on my whole mission. Like,
Nice.
My favorite was luau. It was these kind of spinach type taro leaves that they would wrap jellified coconut milk and chicken and turkey.
Gotta say, yeah, that doesn't sound awesome.
Oh, it was so good.
No, you don't understand.
So freaking good.
Poly food is so good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what they're doing in there to it, but it comes
Just
out
coconut milk,
amazing.
man. Just dousing it in coconut milk.
So good. But I also, just one quick story before we move on, I also really liked eating with poly members. At least this one family that I ate with a lot in Kearns, and I know Alex went with me a couple times, but what they would do every single time is they would get the family bucket of KFC chicken and 3 large sizes, and so they'd invite us in and sit us down, and then everyone in the family would vacate. And so
Wait,
it would just be like, yeah, everyone would leave. So it would just be me and whoever my companion was. And we would just eat. And then the husband would periodically come in and just check our progress to see if we'd eaten enough. And then he'd slowly leave out. and then once we got done eating and we couldn't eat anymore, or he was satisfied with our progress or whatever, then he'd invite us into the living room and the kids would come out of nowhere and rush the table for whatever was left. And they'd share a message and leave. I was fully expecting to get to know these people. I don't know. It sounds bad, but there's like 7 kids and I don't remember any of their names because I don't think
they weren't there.
Yeah, they weren't.
Yo,
I was just like, this is so weird.
So that family, it was Elder O'Dare. Remember Elder O'Dare?
I do.
His last transfer, right? He went on splits with me, and he's like, I just want to be as Kearns as possible. I just want to embrace the Kearns. And I'm like, oh, man, we got you. And so we had a whole basically Kearns-themed missionary day, right? Where it just did all of the things that were synonymous with being a missionary at DK. And for dinner, we went to that family. And we're like, listen, we're going to go here. And I think it was with you when that was a finding activity, and we actually found somebody that we baptized through doing that. But with him, like, that exact experience. This time, the father just sat there at the table and watched us, and you see his eyebrows raise in approval. It's so funny because you feel bad because you're like, I want his kids to eat, but at the same time, like, he wants to see how much of his food you could eat. And yeah, it's good stuff. I freaking, man, salt of the earth.
This one time, we shared a ward with a pair of elders, and I mean, one of them was just super trunky, and you could tell. Yeah, he was close to the end of his mission, and he did not care anymore. And I found out that he told all the members that he was allergic to noodles.
What?
Killing it.
Yeah, I found out in Relief Society, like, as they're passing the meal calendar around, someone was like, allergic to noodles? I don't think that's a thing.
I know.
They all called him out on it.
How dare he?
Like, the worst was boozy, which are these dumplings that are steamed in such a way that they have the juices trapped within the dumpling. And so you have to bite into them and suck them out first, which is very fun, very good. But this one member lady who was a little bit interesting, she came and she brought 3 kilos of ground pork. And then just like half of the old women in the ward just sat there, rolling out the dough, forming them in the little balls, and then steaming them. We had left and done other things because we're not crazy. We come back and they're like, all right, time to eat, elders. And for context, you eat maybe 3 or 4 of these when you order them in a restaurant, and you're full. Basically like eating half of a hamburger. I think we ate 30 or 40 apiece.
Holy cow.
They
Oh my
just kept
goodness.
saying, there's more, elders. You need to eat them. No one else will eat them, elders. You need to eat them.
It's like a game to them, I think. They're like, how pained can we make these
And I still,
missionaries?
that was during the transfer that I still lost those 30 pounds.
So in my mission, dinner wasn't really a thing. Yeah, they had cena, which is like dinner, but like traditionally you eat it at 10 o'clock at night. And so obviously we didn't do that. But if we got really lucky, we would either get invited or stumble upon a family that would serve us what's called once, which is basically a Chilean tea time. It's kind of to tide you over in between lunch and dinner. So it was this little meal, and we never scheduled it with anyone, but we would just go around knocking doors on members and less actives, hoping that they would invite us to eat.
Nice.
That's great.
It was my favorite part of my mission, because I already loved eating little meals like that, and I fell in love with it. It was my dream every night that we would get invited for once. And our mission president was very much like, you guys shouldn't be eating once. You don't need to. You can have a snack at home. If you do get invited to once, make sure you eat it really fast and then teach a lesson afterwards or whatever. But it was like, oh, president, you don't understand. I haven't eaten since 1 o'clock and this is so good and it's cold outside. Please let me in. It was my favorite part of Chilean culture. And it was great because if you got in to eat once, you were set, because it was automatically a sign of like, oh, we like you. We want to be friends with you. And it gave you a chance to actually get to know people. And yeah, it was great. We loved it.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be a great way to do that. Real quick, kind of rounding out the day. The evening hours, I don't know about you guys, but this is where the magic happened. Everything else, the afternoon hours, the morning work, was working with members and, in my opinion, showing faith. Just like showing that you were willing to go anywhere and do anything and put in the effort. And then the evening hours was where you reaped your harvest.
The evening hours were the worst and roughest part of the day. Russia put out a law about 8 months into my mission that missionaries were no longer allowed. And so we very quickly rebranded as volunteers. Now, what does that mean? Missionaries aren't allowed. You're still there, Lincoln. And I'm like, yes. It means we weren't allowed to tract or to street contact, per se. You know, like the classic street contact, you talk to people and you immediately get on the topic of Jesus. No, we had to just talk to people until they asked us, which wasn't that long. We weren't wearing name tags because that was already a thing we didn't do because people would beat us up. But it just meant that people thought we were Jehovah's Witnesses, which was even worse. We would just talk to people and they'd be like, you're an American wearing a suit in my city. Why are you here? This is weird. And so we talked to them, but we still weren't legally allowed to hand out things outside of the church. I still did hand out some illegal Books of Mormon. Don't tell the area presidency.
I know that for us, we walked everywhere. We didn't have cars or bikes. If we had bikes, we'd get attacked by dogs, lots of stray dogs. And so a lot of our work was contacting. Basically, we try to schedule lessons either in the afternoon or the evening with members. And usually we try to schedule for the later evening so that way we wouldn't have to be out in the cold and the dark and we could get once. But yeah, like the worst moments, you're just like, well, we're going to go knock some doors and people are going to look at us like we're crazy for being out in the cold and the rain at 8 o'clock at night, but is what happened.
Yeah, I had a pretty similar experience. I mean, in the summer, it wasn't so bad.
Oh, yeah, the summer was much better.
Right, yeah, because it's still light outside. And
people are a lot more willing to talk to you when it's not rain and snow coming in. And
yeah, that's
cold.
a true story.
Yeah. I was in California, so in the summer evening is when it's cooled down enough that you can be outside, and so that was actually quite nice. And if we had appointments, that's usually when they were. But in the winter, it was dark, and we would knock on doors, and people would be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
I mean, that happened to us too. I remember one particular moment I was knocking in the pretty nice area of Kearns. It was 6:30 and pitch black. And I knock, and the dude opens the door and looks at me. He's like, "What are you doing out here? Go to bed." And I'm like, "It's 6:30. It's literally 6:30. Like, what?"
Great.
I think we've learned much about that man. Our mission president had started a thing where he wanted us to text him every day a miracle we saw during the day. It really helped, actually. You had to go back through your day and see, okay, what was kind of miraculous today? It ended up, those were most of the time the only thing I wrote down in my journal, and so we'd have pretty terrible days, but all I have written down are the nice parts, which was nice.
That is so foreign to me. We were not allowed to contact our mission president unless it was a serious emergency. Yeah. And even then it was like, well, maybe just call your district leader first. It was very much a chain of command. Yes, we had president's phone number saved in our phones, but the audacity of calling him straight from us to him was just unheard of.
Well, let me
So-
break your mind some more then. Not only that, we didn't have zone leaders. We had
What?
2 sets of APs, one over each half of the mission towards the end of my mission, because we only had like 60 missionaries. We didn't need a 3rd level. And the APs called us every week. The district leader called us every night to make sure we were home. Or rather, the district leader called the sisters most of the time because we were living in the same apartment. And my mission president was very involved with everybody. You could text him things. If you asked him for stupid things, like asking him permission to do something, when you could have just thought about whether it was a smart thing to do, he would be very sarcastic with you. But if you called him and you like needed to talk to him, if he picks up, he's like, if I pick up, don't say sorry to bother you. I'm already ready to talk to you. If I don't pick up, I might get back to you, I might not. And our mission president tried very hard to be available and friendly, and everybody really liked him. I mean,
That's really cool.
it's kind of dramatic when he had to leave.
We did a lot of conference calls, either with your district or zone. There would be some kind of thing like what Lincoln was talking about that most of our districts or zones did. You'd all call in, and they'd usually last somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. Either that or the district or zone leader would call the companionship and just chat with them for 5 or 10 minutes.
That's
But
cool.
since there were so many of those, you were pretty pressed for time between 9 o'clock and bedtime to even just get ready for bed and still do all of the phone calls, let alone if you were in a companionship with the district leader or zone leader, because then you were making all of those calls. But it was a really nice way to actually interact with the other missionaries who you might not otherwise interact with very much.
It's interesting to see how you guys might not have had zone exercise or anything, but you did have a way to stay connected and unified as a zone and as a mission.
Yeah.
I will say, in the time between, like, you finish daily planning, you finish reporting to your district leader, and you're just kind of getting ready for bed, it was all about treats. It was all about
Nice.
what kind of sweet thing can we make? And I kid you not, I, for like a whole transfer, made a brownie in a mug every night for my companion because she was from Colombia
Aw.
and she had never really had a brownie. And the fact that I could make this sweet treat in a mug for both of us, she just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And honestly, every time you got like a new companion or did splits or anything, it was like, Hermana, what recipes do you have? What do you use it? Like, it was like drug dealing. It was all about the brownies. It was all about the chocolate chip cookies. And we'd share them with investigators because, you know, nothing works better to get somebody to invite you over if you're like, hey, do you want to try brownies for the first time? And they're like, yeah. And so it was all about treats in the evening, you know, making some kind of sweet thing to eat before bed.
There were
That's
definitely
awesome.
others who did that in my mission,
Yeah.
but it was kind of few and far between. Though one of our best success stories came from my companion making maple cookies that we left at a less active member who had gone off the radar house, and he later wrote me a note and mentioned them as one of the reasons he came back.
The power
Oh,
of
wow.
Yeah, I had a few companions who were very, very good with treats, and that was precious. Like that. Oh, that was a good time. But for me, I think getting ready for bed and just kind of getting in and then having companionship, prayer, we would always have some pillow talk after. Like,
Yeah,
as we're-
pillow
that was
talk.
like, yeah, that was very precious. Like, that's when we would talk about the boys from home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And tell each other stories. It was just great.
Yeah, same.
Same. Especially when we were on splits.
Yes,
Really?
splits, it was like a slumber party.
We had like a elder split once, and we're like comparing how many girls that each other had kissed, and then I hadn't kissed anybody, and my companion had kissed 2. And this one elder's like, I won't tell you mine, but like, guys, 6 is probably the max you want. It's enough that you don't sound like you've never kissed anyone before, but not so many that you sound like you're just a total hoe.
Hot takes with on missionary pillow talk.
Hot takes with Elder Ormsby.
Pillow Talk was legit banned in my mission.
Oh, shoot.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a big mission conference where about half the people were like, but we love Pillow Talk, and about half the people were like, but my companion won't shut up. And the mission president was like, okay, I guess 10:30, everybody shuts up.
What?
Dang.
So, yeah, it was just a quiet apartment.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming, Melanie and Lincoln. We really appreciate having you on here. It was a blast. And yeah, looking forward to the next topic. So once again, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.